Okay, welcome back. We're resuming from break. First up, we have Andrea Harris from our Customer Service and Outreach Division, and she's going to provide us some information on educational resources and tools.
Good morning, everyone. It's actually pronounced Michelle. My coworker, Michael Hadeen, is actually doing business rules training this morning at the San Jose Regional Office, so many of you were expecting Michael, I'm sorry. But happily, I have met many of you at business rules training, so good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to be your CalPERS commercial this morning, so I'm going to share with you some online resources and tools. So we have a couple quick topics that I'm going to cover for you, beginning with our benefit education events. The events have taken a new turn where we're focusing on folks in all aspects of their career, whether they're new to CalPERS, they're mid-career, or they're nearing retirement. We're getting away from the focus of calling them retirement events or retirement fairs because that's who would come, just folks that are ready to retire. But we'd like to get the word out that the event is for everyone throughout their career. Then I'm going to tell you about the employer events and educations. And finally, some online resources for both yourselves and your employees. Give you some tips and tricks of where to find some training. So first, our CalPERS benefit education events. These are 2-day events. They are held on Friday and Saturdays to allow you to come on your days off, or Friday if work permits. They're focused on CalPERS members. We don't have employer training there, we have member training so people can learn about their retirement benefits. As I mentioned, early and mid-career, and also classes through retirement. So what we've done at the education event, we provide everyone a schedule when they come to the event, and on one side are the classes for folks nearing retirement, within 5 years of retirement per se, and on the other side we have a schedule of events for those folks earlier or mid in their career. Some of the breakout sessions that we include during these 2-day events, and keep in mind they are the same, both Friday and Saturday. That's a very common question. People come in, they say, hey, I'm here Friday, do I need to come back Saturday? Are they different? No, they're the exact same thing. So it's not required that you attend both days. The breakout sessions include, we talk about deferred compensation. We offer a class on Social Security where an actual employee of the Social Security Administration comes to talk. A lot of people have questions, well, does the windfall elimination impact me? How do I get my Social Security benefits? When should I apply? We also have talk on health benefits. Then member self-service. Member self-service, we give you a tour of CalPERS Online, how you can log into your own account and some of the tools that are available for you, such as preparing your own retirement estimate. Or maybe you need a service credit cost estimate. So we give you a tour of some of the information available online. So that's for your employees. For yourselves, the business rules training is what myself and my coworkers, we prepare and we have this class. The next event I'd like to share with you is the second week of March. Your session will actually be on March 10th. So in business rules training, I recognize some of you from our prior classes that's held here in Sacramento. We offer 3 events per year. So you can come during the time of year that's convenient for you, or if you have new staff attending. What we teach you there is how to conduct business with CalPERS by following the business rules. Some of the topics that we include in our presentation, we cover when and how to enroll someone into membership. More specifically, have they met their 1,000 hours? What type of position are you hiring them into? We also cover payroll reporting, service retirement calculation, understanding service credit purchases, because a lot of them do require an estimate prior to actually making the purchase. And if you weren't aware, pension reform did not do away with service credit purchases. We have over 24 different types. Okay? It just eliminated one type. We also talk about the employer's role in the retirement process. And we will go over the retirement contract and the benefits that come to you with that contract. Additional training for employers is provided by my sister unit. And what they do, they have my CalPERS hands-on training. So hands-on, what does that mean? We bring you to a classroom with 12 computers. And we will actually sit you at the computer and walk you through my CalPERS transactions and how to actually perform them using the my CalPERS system. We teach such things such as how to use the EFT process, retirement enrollments, how to use the Cognos feature and run different reports. health enrollment benefits, and submitting and adjusting payroll files. Now the CalPERS classes, they tend to fill up fast because they are limited to 12 students per class. But that same week of March 9th, they are in the Sacramento location, so you can certainly sign up if you're interested. In addition to online training, we have online resources. Seems like I skipped a slide. All right. There we go. Okay. Business rules videos. So what we've done, we've created actual videos that actually are like modules of our classes. So if you find it's more convenient to attend a class at your own desk, you can simply take a class on retirement contract navigation, or you'll see that we offer many other letters. All right. So our online resources. So we are unveiling, it is now online, a new health benefits procedure guide. Awesome. How many of you knew there wasn't one out there before? Because that's a big request. We're being asked for health training. In addition to the online resources, we have zip code search. The zip code search feature, you're not required to log in, but your employees or yourselves, the zip code allows you to find health benefits. Health plans are available in your area, the zip code of where you work, or the zip code of where you're residing. Okay. Then the health program guide provides information on eligibility and enrollment, which you can also find online. So finally, some more online resources. We have our health benefits summary, which does compare covered services. It gives you an overview of the health services available. Very nice tool. And then the Medicare enrollment guide. So when you're reaching 65 and you have questions about Medicare, this would be very helpful for you. So retirement planning tools. 2 retirement planning calculators. So let me share with you the difference of the calculators. When you go to CalPERS online, we have 2 ways in which you can get a retirement estimate. The first one is simply by accessing our website. It's a generic calculator. You provide your own data, such as your own payroll and your years of service credit, which is a little bit different from the CalPERS, the self-service where you log in. If you log in, the system provides your payroll, your years of service credit, and gives you a much more thorough estimate retirement. So you do have the choice of either one. Then we have the service credit estimator. And the service credit estimator is available on the CalPERS website. Again, if I mentioned that you want to purchase service credit, many types require that you do an estimate prior to actually making the purchase. So that's very helpful. So that was your brief CalPERS commercial. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any at this time. All right. Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Before we bring on the inimitable Tim Herback, I do have a couple of comments. I would like to address some questions that are coming in through the webcast. We did have one question. When will these, or it was actually, are the school employer contribution rates available right now? The answer is no. The board approves those in April, so that's when they'll be released. So you did not miss that circular letter. It has not come out yet. We also had a question, will the legislative updates, what Danny Brown shared earlier today, will those be available online? The actual formal agenda item will be, and he mentioned those very briefly, they're kind of like small, kind of like internal CalPERS guidelines clarifications on, there's some for pension, there's some for investment, there's some for health, kind of like small changes. Those are part of the board agendas for next week, so those are published and available for viewing online. Danny's comments and just kind of like general professional opinion on developments within the legislature are not available. Those are just his wisdom applied to that. There's no formal bill on those or anything. For example, he was talking about state retiree rates. Those things are going to be negotiated in the future, so it's all just kind of speculation. But so those won't be available online, but the actual content on the investment, pension, and health not legislation, but the internal guidelines that we're kind of adjusting are available. I just don't think it'll be particularly fascinating. It's kind of like internal stuff. There's a couple other questions that I think I'll reserve for the panel that we'll be ending with. But now, without further delay, the man, Tim Herback.
So I went to the dentist today just to make sure my pearly whites are here for you guys for my smile. Okay. I'll give you my best side. There's not a lot to talk about today regarding my CalPERS release updates. Brad already indicated that the next release that we have going into my CalPERS is going to be March 29th, and then the following one will happen in June. So right now we're still actively going through our testing, development, and building process for a lot of things that are going through March 29th, and trying to confirm to make sure that whatever we implement doesn't take us backwards or break something, which is something we've experienced all over and over and over again. So my team's a little bit more involved in the testing and regression testing efforts, and so hopefully with this release we'll be able to make sure the impacts are limited. But I'm here today to talk more about the enhancements. And so some of the payroll reporting enhancements we have, the first is going to be for everyone who submits files, and I think this is going to be something that's pretty huge, one for you, but also for our call center, because they'll no longer hopefully receive a lot of calls. And what we'll do right now is when your files are rejected for whatever reason, and the most common reason is that you're reporting a prior period adjustment transaction in your current regular report with regular dates. And it'll say, this transaction needs to be reported as an EPR transaction. For some of you, I've already kind of over the phone talked about how to open your report in Excel and find them. But with the March release, we're actually going to start identifying the person's last name and the CalPERS ID. Now, it's only going to be for the first person that the file fails on. We don't identify all of them because once the file fails, it stops. It doesn't process through all the records. So there could be opportunity where you fix the person we call out in the red box, upload the file, and you'll get it again and again and again until you fix all of them. In that case, it's always a good thing to open it up in Excel or some kind of program and kind of start setting some filters to see if you have anybody similar. And if you don't know how to do that, you can always give me a call and I can kind of walk you through how to open up your XML file in Excel and set filters. Talking about Excel real quick, just to kind of piggyback on Brad's presentation regarding the unknown unknown. Most of your vendors right now, I believe, once Pepper was implemented, made the category and type of special compensation a required element. And so you're starting to give us the 3-digit code values. Some vendors I talked to still don't have the category and type as a required element, so they leave it out of the file, which then makes that record default as unknown if there is a value for special comp reported. And then they have to go into my CalPERS and then correct the record online. And that's because they may not have a lot of Pepper people and it's manageable today. But if you start doing Classic, it's not going to be manageable. So hopefully with the circular letter, you would send that to whoever your developer is, QSS, Escape, Tyler, SunGuard, and let them know that these are now going to be required fields. Once the implementation goes in, we'll update our data element definition document online, so they'll have a point of reference if they don't believe you. And I know some of your vendors don't always believe you, because I get the calls. So hopefully once we do that, we'll update the DED document online to show that the category and type of special compensation is still technically optional, and it's only optional when the value is not being reported, right? We can't make it required because if we require it and there's no value, it doesn't make sense. So we'll make the definitions and we'll explain a little bit more on the unknown unknown. Something that's good is the service history page. Today, if you log in and you have somebody who has an appointment of less than 1 year, I believe you're looking, when you go to the payroll details and you try to see their historical payroll and what was reported for the last year, if they only have 1 year or less, it doesn't show up, and that was a defect. If you go through the transaction history page, you'll see it, but service history, we don't. So we're fixing that, and hopefully that'll be there. Also, school districts who aren't data element owners, data owners for payroll reporting, by the very virtue of us making a data owner, which means all of you who report payroll are data owners, that gives you access to those pages, allows you to do what you need to do. If a district's not a data owner today, they won't be able to see service history for their employees. So we are going to now allow them to see service history for their active employees who have an appointment. They won't be able to see appointment details for any other district or school or public agency that person worked at. It'll only display payroll that was posted for an appointment that was theirs. And that should be for retirees also. So they'll be able to now see payroll. So if there is a discrepancy and you have to have them go back and change it in their system because they send it to you and you just consume it and send it to us, they'll have a little bit more resources to do that for. The transaction history, we're updating that to show correct interest dates. This was never a big problem. I guess this is a problem since Go Live. Nobody really caught that we weren't posting interest on the transaction history page, therefore making the contribution totals off. And then the next fiscal year came and it kind of was like, I don't see it. But now that we're almost 3 years into the system, people started calling us and saying, hey, why is the post my CalPERS payroll showing 0 interest posted and my contributions totals are off? And that's because we just didn't add it. So that's going to be fixed, and now you'll see the posted interest for the fiscal years post my CalPERS and the correct contribution totals. So those have all been fixed. The supplemental income plan, they just wanted to talk to you a little bit about 2 changes they're making. Employers will now be able to update SIP only appointments. What this is for you is if it's a STRS member and they do contribute to our SIP plan, we consider that an SIP only appointment. And today there was problems with enrolling these and separating these SIP only appointments. Once this new implementation goes, and you'll be able to separate those SIP only appointments. You'll also be able to make some demographic changes to their profile, which means you can do their social security number or DOB. However, in talking with our SIP team, it's a little different than our PERS program. If this person has ever had an active PERS or health appointment with CalPERS, you still won't be able to do their DOB or SSN. And that's because if they have a health appointment with somewhere else and you update their address or social security number, it doesn't sync back. And so there could be downstream impacts, which by them talking about it made me look into our PERS side, and we have some of the same issues. So I have to go back and try to run all the scenarios of if you have a district who doesn't have health with us and you update their address or SSN, how does that impact health? Or if you have a retiree who's retired and getting benefits from us and you enroll them as a retired annuitant, the very nature of enrolling them as a retired annuitant gives you access to that summary page where you can update their demographics, and that may not always be good because if you update their mailing address, we're supposed to be the point of contact that could play havoc. So I have more work to do. It's job security. But for SIP, you guys can at least separate and update SIP only appointments that have no concurrent or prior appointment details with us before. And then also the supplemental income plan contribution detail report that you run when you do your SIP only reports, for whatever reason, was not including adjustment report transactions. It was just showing the earn period, unlike the PERS side where we show you the earn period reports, and then on the bottom all adjustment reports that were submitted for that fiscal year. We are now including the adjustment reports for the SIP side. So that's being fixed. General design changes. This is kind of my baby. This is what I like most now. I'm kind of trying to, I really want to give Brad his due. Brad's a great guy. So I'm trying to get out of the payroll side and all that side. But general is now my passion, is like the general system design. And so we are making a bunch of general changes to the system. First and foremost, with PEPRA, we had to have employers identify reciprocity agents and enrollments. And if you didn't know the agency, because if you look in our policies and procedures, we just list the agencies that are, partnered with reciprocity. It doesn't give you the CalPERS ID for that employer. And when you do XML reporting for retirement enrollments, you need that ID. If you do it online, it's not a problem. So we found, well, why don't you just do an organization search and you'll get that ID. But today, if you do an organization search, we get every organization with that name. It doesn't give you the status. It doesn't give you the CalPERS ID. It just gives you the name and address. And internally, we know there's a bunch of addresses or employers that are in there like 20 times, and there's only one active. So it'd be hard for us. We're enhancing that page so it'll now give you more profile information. If you do an organization search, it's going to give you their status, their CalPERS ID, their address, and some other details. It's just expanding the current view. It's a view we've had and we've always assumed you've had. So we're fixing that. System access administrators can update the username for contacts. This was a weird one that we discovered because if you're a system administrator, you can change the username for another system administrator, but you couldn't do it for somebody who wasn't an administrator. So it didn't make sense to us. So right now the changes being is that you can change the username, say for instance they forget it or they want to just change their username, for anybody other than yourself. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense either. You should be able to do yourself. But then someone goes, well, how do you change your username once you're logged in for yourself while you're in the system? I'm like, oh, Okay, that makes sense. So if you're trying to change your own, just have the other system administrator change yours, because by that time, you're out of the system, you're not logged in, and they can change your username. System security for navigating through CalPERS. This is something we're still actively testing with our employer training teams to make sure we don't mess this one up. Because this is going to be a big change. And what this is based on the security roles you assign your contacts. They should only navigate based on those security roles, right? If it's a payroll person, we shouldn't show them the billing roster for health. If they're a health person only, we shouldn't be showing them all the payroll contributions. That's why we have security roles and you guys assign them. Well, we found out there was a couple generic ones that gave access to almost everything. So we're changing that. And we went in and we looked at all the security roles, looked at all the pages, and we updated the system. That being said, once you start messing with code and security roles, you can be a health person like we discovered yesterday, and all of a sudden not be able to do health enrollments because somewhere they didn't flip the right read to read only statuses. So we're testing this and we're trying to make sure it goes in correctly. So assigning people's roles is going to be essential. However, if you are somebody who does payroll and all of a sudden you lose a screen that's payroll related, please let me know. We're going to have to go in and find out where in our security matrix we messed up. But I have like 12 people going through every scenario trying to make sure we didn't mess this up. Caveat, it's not my fault. The new method for communicating. So this is the biggest thing. And I know for like the assembly bill that Brad talked about where we did employer rates and the GASB thing, circular letters go out. And one of the issues I've always heard from the stakeholders is that, I never received a circular letter. Why didn't I get it? Well, that's because there's a process. You go onto our website, you say, I want communications, and you get on this list proc, and we send stuff out, and sometimes we do mailing. Well, the list proc that's managed is not updated, and we can't sync it with CalPERS. So if you're updating your email address in CalPERS, it's not updating the list proc. If you have people who are separated or added, and they're not doing the list proc, it's not getting updated. And I found out that our list proc is so old, there's no way to sync the databases up. So I'm like, well, that's not good. So what we do now is we're building this functionality in CalPERS. It's going to be great for our marketing teams. It's going to be great for our educational teams. It's going to be great for communications. Where internally we can target an employer, a demographic regional area, a contact type, and based on whatever demographics or contacts we decide, we can now push out a message that will appear on your homepage. Along with this message, if we have an agenda item, circular letter, or attachment, something that's going to be given at the training that they want, we'll be able to do the agenda items or attachments. The caveat for this new thing, and it's still being developed, and it's still kind of being hashed out, is that there's not an email notification that goes out to everybody. So for right now, if we do it and it's like to all Southern California school employers, the general primary contact will get an email that says you got a message, you got mail on your homepage. But everybody else, as long as they're part of that selection criteria, will be able to see it, be able to see the attachments. So it might behoove the general primary contact, or if we assign a different primary contact that gets those, just to share that out. But worst case scenario, just like our doc history today, where not everybody gets the email that says there's something in doc history, it just should be known that people should go to the homepage. I mean, most of you probably, when you log in, you know what tab to go to directly. You just hit the reporting tab and you never look at the information we have on the homepage. So it's going to be a little bit more in your best interest to look at that. Okay, so that's going to be happening, and hopefully it'll go out, and that'll give me a better chance. If I want to target a specific group, we can send that communication out, and I don't have to worry that you didn't get it. We'll still go through the other processes, but this is just an extra level. At the very end, thank you. Cognos reports, CalPERS, like I just said about the homepage. One of the biggest complaints we got about our Cognos reports is people don't know how to run them, the browser requirements, or what Cognos reports are available. Those are all on our webpage. We are redoing or enhancing our webpage in July sometime, where this page now will list all the Cognos reports that are available to you, a brief description, and an image of what it actually looks like. So you can kind of say, okay, yeah, that appears to give me what I want. But until that happens, we do have a laundry list of all the Cognos reports. We do have a browser requirements doc out there. And the training team does have how to run Cognos reports, which is very interesting because you can run reports that are lengthy and have them run overnight and available for you in the morning. You create folders. There's a whole bunch of great stuff. So what we did is on your homepage now, so nobody can complain that we don't tell people how to run Cognos reports. On your homepage, I have all three links housed. So they can just automatically see it and they can get to those pages automatically. Known issues. So, issues. This is all really, by the way, these 5 things came from people in this room who have my number. Without you guys, I would not know these issues really existed. So someone brought to my attention the participant appointment details report. Currently, report displays the incorrect end date. The end date and begin date of the appointment are exactly the same. So when the coders were coding it, they just used the same value for both columns. That's being fixed hopefully in the March release. The contribution detail report, which what Brad briefly went over in his section, displays the incorrect employer rate. It's a rounding issue. And so if you look at it right now, you're going your payroll, you look at your contribution details, and it gives you all the employer rates. It could be off. It'll be like 29.2, 29.3, 28.9. Well, if you actually take the employer earnings and divide that by the earnings you reported, you'll get a percentage that goes out 4 decimals and it rounds up. If you were to download that report in Excel and take it into a currency format, 4 decimals out, it'll look accurate. But we're fixing the rounding issue and display issue and how we do it. So that's all going to be fixed, hopefully by this March release. Then we have 3 other ones that may or may not be done before now in June. The reported member detail report does not consistently display all versions of special compensation. It's hit or miss, and we don't know right now why it's hit or miss, but we're looking into it. And then the last 2 reports aren't very used. I think over the last year, only 77 people ran the first one and 34 ran the second one. But these reports are showing, again, the wrong begin and end dates based on the report dates, or the wrong report dates based on the begin dates, depending on if you're running the collective error report to see all the errors across all reports or the exception report. This is something I know none of you guys have probably done because, like I said, only 75 have ran the error report, and that's across all employer categories. But it's a defect, and I figured I'd tell you about it. That is all I have in regards to system enhancements and Cognos reports and general context. Vina, I know you have a question, so we have a mic, and then I'll open it up.
When you were talking about navigating through my CalPERS, where you were saying we will be able to see, let's say, billing. So are we going to be able to see, each district can see their own bills?
No.
Okay.
It's still, what we're getting at is based on the data ownership, right? If the districts are, if we, see how to say, the arrears report was something we did, that we pushed out as a receivable and billing based on your preference to go to the data owner because you report payroll, you do the contributions. There are some other invoices, RBF invoices, possibly the GASB invoice, that aren't related to data owners. So as long as your districts have access to my CalPERS and we post a receivable to their account for any kind of fees or whatever, they will be able to see it as long as they have the billing role. Now, for some roles where it's like you are the data owner and the processes are associated to the data owner, districts won't be able to see that data because you control that data. What I'm trying to get at is if you control the data and you're the payroll person, you should not, and you also have a health contract and you're not the health benefit officer also, we shouldn't give you access to the health pages, right? Payroll people shouldn't have access to dependents, health coverages, costs, because that's not their role. And that's what we're shoring up right now to make sure that is all secure.
I mean, it's just a wish list that if we can see those, the billings, all those billings, if they are paid also, so there is a column that it's paid or cleared.
You should be able
Because
to
we
see
have
paid
so
receivables.
many.
There's a filter that actually shows your closed receivables, your paid receivables, and your open receivables. So
Okay.
if you go to the billing and payment or not the billing and payment, but if you go to your receivables page, the top panel gives you filters where you can filter out closed, paid, pending, rejected.
Okay,
Return insufficient funds.
thank you.
Do you have insufficient funds?
So on the arrears reports, you're saying that if it's being reported through the county rather than through individual districts, we're going to be unable to get the arrears report. We have to go back to the county, have them run the report for us so that we could verify the amounts of the invoices we're receiving.
Do you report payroll or do they report payroll for you?
They report payroll.
The Cognos report, Because the receivable goes right now to the county and they pay it. Pardon me?
They
Well,
give
you-
it to
yeah,
us
but-
and we pay it directly to you. It does not go through the county. And when we get the invoice, we have to verify the accuracy of the invoice and the amounts in order to pay it, since we can't do it through the payroll system.
I believe we did not do the security roll based on data ownership for Cognos reports, but just the CalPERS pages.
Yeah,
So you would have the payroll roll, you can run the arrears report because that's associated to the payroll security
Well, I
roll.
could not change it from my district name to Sac County Schools, where it was run. So I had to call SCOE and ask them to please run the report for me, have them email it to me so that I could verify the invoice totals. It would not let me change it from my school district name.
That's correct, and we won't do that. Because if we allowed you to see Sac County schools, you see all receivables and all arrears cases for that school, not just your district. We don't have, there's not a tri-level of security that says, and I know another agency wanted their districts to be able to test payroll reporting, but then not be able to, they would have to test it and the county can see it, but then not give them access to all the other payroll reports. The same thing with Cognos reports. If the billing receivable is at the parent, and they have the receivable posted, regardless of who pays it. If the billing receivable is posted to the parent, the report is associated to the parent has to run it, and they have to work with their districts to give them that information.
So
We
even
won't
if
give
we
them
have
dual
the
coverage.
specific ID number and name of that particular employee that's involved, we still can't get access to it?
Not if they own the data.
Thank you.
Hi.
In regards to special comp and the unknowns, we are trying to get our districts to identify what those special comps are for, like for example, for longevity or, shift differential or whatever it is that the special comp is coming for. How will you know? I mean, will there be a record in the data that says this special comp is for longevity or this special comp is for shift differential? Okay, so how will we know what to use? Will you be giving us a list of that, or will we give you the list that we're using?
No, so on the back of the data element definition document that we have published, we actually list out all the categories of special comp that are reportable and all the types. And we give a mapping of the 3-digit code that the technicians or the third-party vendors allow you to populate and to pop out. That comes into the report, and once the report's processed and posted, we then display the category and type that you defined within your report, and then you can confirm it. For PEPRA, we have rules and regulations regarding what categories and types can be reported because we know that it's restricted. So once the system views it as a PEPRA appointment, then we have validations against the category and types that are reported. For Classic, we don't have that validation right now. So whatever you report as the category and types, for Classic members, those are what the system will accept. And then back-end business processes will have to confirm whether or not you have that as an allowable special compensation. But that's not my part, that would be comp review. I'm just saying, for Classic members, if you currently don't give us the 3-digit code values, you're gonna have to give that data element definition document to your vendor and saying, here are all the categories and types we can report. You probably should, based on your MOU, circle which ones you use if they're gonna do it as a default value in your third-party application. So then whenever somebody logs it, those are the only choices they can select in your system, and then the report will just capture that and send it to us.
Okay, and you have that list is
Yeah, that's
on-
all published online right now, so if you
Online.
go to My CalPERS for employers, you'll see technical resources, and then under our technical resources web area of CalPERS Online, you'll see data element definition documents.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm out.
Okay, briefly, I've only received questions from 2 people on the webcast, so I'm wondering if perhaps they didn't catch the new policy of emailing me directly. So again, it's david_takearts@calpers.ca.gov. That impronounceable last name is spelled out on the agenda. So if you take a look at the agenda for the day, use my name right there, david_takearts, and email me questions, because we are coming up on a new portion of the meeting, which is going to be a kind of like a panel discussion. So what we'd like to do is invite some of our subject matter experts to come up And then just field questions from the audience that perhaps haven't had a natural topic assigned to them so far. We know that there are some questions that kind of come between the cracks there. I do just ask though, if you have a scenario in your district that's just, 1 in a million, just completely off the wall, like how did this happen, then perhaps take that one offline with our experts. What we really want to focus on here are scenarios and questions that can do a lot of value add for everybody in the room. So those like really oddball situations, I'm sure we'd be happy to address in a one-on-one scenario. So at this point, I'd like to ask some of our CalPERS staff to go ahead and just come up here together. And we're gonna, we received questions on topics like working after retirement, the IRC 415B, and right of election. So those folks and any of the other brave CalPERS staff, and we'll take those questions. Those of you who asked them are probably in the room, but the floor is really open for questions that haven't been addressed yet. And also, I'll be monitoring my email, and I'll interject some questions from the team. So go ahead and come on up. Do not be shy. Yes, that is correct. Thank you very much. Okay, so do we have a question from the audience that we can get kicked off with here?
My question is about retirees. Retirees means when you calculate the unused sick leave, and when people retire from both system PERS and STRS, and you calculate the unused sick leave, how do you do that? Like,
How is it calculated as service credit?
no, what I'm saying is when people retire from both systems, so they report whatever the classified sick time to you guys and certificate it to the CalSTRS system. That is easy one, simple.
Okay.
But what if somebody was a STRS member, they became PERS member, and we have a accumulated sick leave? How do you calculate that? Are we supposed to separate that? I'm not sure when people have worked both jobs, how
Okay.
the unused sick leave
Hi,
work.
I'm Rosanna Castaigne with Benefits, and I'll kind of briefly try to answer the question. The sick leave that you can report is unused sick leave that is earned in the course of the employment. So when they have a CalPERS position, it's what sick leave is earned in the normal course of that employment. And you take the unused sick leave bank, the hours divided by 8 hours for a day, and that's what gets reported as unused sick leave. It has to be unused. So if there's a policy where part of it or all of it is cashed out, you cannot report any part that's been cashed out. It's only truly unused. Does that answer your question?
Let's say somebody who was a member of STRS, and now they, in between a couple of months, let's say they were a member of PERS first.
Okay.
At the same district, they accepted a teaching position.
Can we remember to use the mic, please?
Okay. Somebody was a member of PERS, and they accepted a teaching position at the district. So their last day, let's say, with PERS was in 2010, but they never left the district. So the district is accumulating now certificated sick leave because they are working up to 2015. So when the person retires from both systems, do we have to separate that?
I think that
Classified
probably
and
qualifies as one of those unusual situations that we should probably take back.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, because that, I think we would probably do that.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question from Rudy Lopez down in Los Angeles Community College District. If we have an employee who's working for 2 different districts and he's earning a higher salary with the other guy's district, are we required to enroll him in an alternate retirement system? Is that enough details here?
So so looking at the positions, if there are multiple part-time positions and they qualify for CalPERS, they should be enrolled in CalPERS. If it's a full-time and a part-time, they still need to be enrolled into CalPERS, and then we will mark whichever one is non-contributory and notify the employer, and then they would have to report the payroll based on the code. No contributions, no service.
Yeah, so you would report the person as contributory to begin with. The membership group would make the determination if it was not contributory. Then the payroll unit would work with the employer to back out the payroll that was reported. You'd receive a credit for what was reported. And then you would re-report using a PPA or PPN, prior period adjustment, no contributions. And my staff could always help you out with that if you ever need assistance with that.
Thank you very much. Other questions at this time?
Excuse me, right of election question for you. I have a member that was a substitute teacher and permissively elected STRS. They didn't mandatorily qualify for STRS and was a sub for many years. And during that time, they would have never mandatorily qualified because they worked under the limits. The employee's now been hired in a permanent position that is PERS. Since they permissively elected STRS, do they have the right to elect STRS for that PERS position they were hired for?
Hi, Heather Herr. You know, that's a situation that like lately has been kind of brought to light. The answers that the decision tree that is out there lead you one way, and CalSTRS is looking at that decision tree, and we've spoken with them briefly regarding it on whether those situations are accurately represented on that decision tree anymore. And I think that that's one of them that's currently being looked at. So I don't feel comfortable giving an answer just for CalPERS side. I would like to discuss it with STRS and have them kind of like, feed into that answer. So if I could just get your information and maybe the members' information, and I can run it by CalSTRS as well. I'm sure that this happens more often, but these are coming to light more and more.
Right, that's why I was asking as a general question here.
I know. And there's been a couple situations, and my idea and then running it by CalSTRS, we've had differences. And so that's why I don't feel comfortable giving an answer on that situation right now without talking with them.
So in
And
the
we do
meantime-
plan,
Sorry.
just as a follow up to that, we do plan on getting with you guys regarding the decision tree very soon. Like I said, we've briefly had one meeting regarding that, and how it fits in today's world and how those situations are being represented, and sometimes situations are not 100% accurately fit into those, but they're getting squeezed into them, and so that's causing some concern. And so there's a lot kind of going around what's in that decision tree and what we need to do in order to assist you guys without possibly having that decision tree as the only thing to reference.
Okay, so for now, because we can't really get a definitive answer yet,
Mm-hmm.
can we just do status quo until we have the answers? So in this situation, I believe in our county, we have been allowing them to elect STRS for the PERS work because they are a STRS member now, but permissively elected.
I think that it will depend on each situation. For instance, if you have someone who's left CalPERS and they have gone to substitute teaching, and they've permissively elected to be under CalSTRS for that substitute teaching, and then later they gain a full-time certificated employment, and they, at that point, would they be giving the 372 to elect? It depends.
Well, we wouldn't because they were a member of both now.
It depends because, for instance, if there's a break in service now, right? There's this person, if they had left CalPERS and they went straight into that full-time certificated,
In the same district,
you would give them the right of election.
right?
They've gone into substitute teaching, so there's this break. And now they're going into being a CalSTRS. Do they get the right of election? Do they have 5 years? Do they not? There's eligibility that needs to be looked at that point.
But there's no break in service if they're working for the same district. They're still servicing that district.
There's a break in service from CalPERS, though. They're no longer working as a
Okay.
CalPERS member.
So that is new. That's not how it was discussed in the past.
Are you understanding this question better than me?
Francis? Yeah, the only break in service that you shared with us with this election is if they moved districts and there was a weekend in between. It wasn't
Right, I
even just from
understand that,
workday
but
to
then-
workday.
The way that I'm seeing it at this point is if the person has left and they're no longer a member, the right of election comes when someone's a member of CalPERS and they take on a position covered under CalSTRS that mandatory elects, you give them this right of election.
Right.
Okay. They haven't done that because they've now taken on a position that doesn't give them that mandatory right of election. So they're now permissively electing to be CalSTRS. Later on, they're taking on a full-time position. Are they given that right of election? And you're saying that in the past, you guys have given them that right of election.
No, because now they're a member of both, because they permissively elected STRS, they're a member of STRS, and they are already a member of PERS. They're a dual member, so they default to
They're not an active
the
member
retirement
of
system that
PERS
the
anymore,
position's
though.
for. Unless they're refunded, yeah.
They cannot elect PERS because of the permissive election. That's what CalSTRS has said.
Yes.
Part of the reason why I didn't want to get into this without CalSTRS.
Yeah, okay.
I think what Heather wanted to clarify is because they went to the permissive position as a substitute, they're not actively employed and in membership with CalPERS. So then the right of election wouldn't be given because they're not active. Whereas they are active at the permissive position, and although they were a member of CalPERS, they're not active, so the right of election wouldn't.
Your definition of active is if they are not terminated. So if the
If they're not
person is
separated.
Yeah,
If-
separated.
Right.
So if the person is not separated here and comes and substitute here, that means this person can have election.
Right, because then they can always go back to the PERS, because they're not separated.
Yeah, can you give us
They
like,
are separated because
Okay.
they stopped working actively under CalPERS.
can you
So
give
that's where
us-
the 5 years comes
They're
in.
still in the same district though, but anyway, go ahead, Pam.
Yeah,
But
can
the
you kind of-
position,
maybe
the
we
position
need-
that they're holding is a different position, right? So they were CalPERS member in a certain position. Then they stopped working that position and went into the substitute position. It's a different position. So they should be separated out of that other employment, and then whatever is decided, they make the permissive election for this other position that doesn't qualify for CalPERS because it's substitute, permissive election.
what we really need,
Yeah.
what we could really use is like a new guideline written on these scenarios, because us hearing it here, even now, can be very confusing, let alone trying to explain it as counties to all our districts. It's getting so complicated on what your scenarios are working and not working, and we don't want to have to call STRS or PERS on every single right of election. We
Right.
get tons of them. So we want to be really clear, and at the county level, we have to approve these. So we want to make sure we know them. And the question we hadn't even heard about the sub issue until recently, that you weren't allowing a person who was a member of STRS. We thought a member of STRS, that's it. And now they're taking a mandatory PERS position that they wouldn't have a right of election. So there's new scenarios that are coming out, but not all of us are hearing about them. And it's very, very confusing. So we'd really like something maybe out there, especially in writing. It helps clarify it with our districts as well.
You know, and I really appreciate that feedback because, like I said, we've started to have some really high-level meetings regarding scenarios, the decision tree, and what needs to happen to assist you guys in the best way possible. And I know that it gets very confusing, and I totally understand you not wanting to have to pick up the phone and call every time with every situation. And that's why I know the decision tree was like, ah, when it came, because it was so helpful. And then at the same time, has it been adjusted with changing times? You know, no, it hasn't. And I think that's where it's come to light that it really needs to be looked at and really needs to be seen as whether it's a positive reference for you or not. And it doesn't sound like it is, but what do we do in place of that? And what kind of things does CalSTRS and CalPERS feel comfortable providing as reference materials for you? And those discussions are just starting. And we did talk about when we could come together, CalSTRS, CalPERS, and stand up here and discuss those future plans with you. We weren't quite prepared to do that at this meeting. I'm hoping by May that we are, and this feedback is very valuable. So I appreciate it, and I will talk with Valerie and Cassie at CalSTRS and share with them this, and maybe later on today, if you guys have this chance to share with them, it would be really good.
Okay, so to tag on what Pam said, if you don't mind, could you have a separate meeting just on this topic? Because it can get very, like we started doing today, just you and
Yeah.
I, with the level of scenarios. I don't think we'll have enough time at one of these meetings to go over it fully and for us all to share with you our different scenarios so we can fit everything in. And it could be beneficial to us if we can participate in those decision discussions as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. I think that's a very fair request. I do have another question on a slightly different topic coming in. I think this one would probably be for Brad, but I'm not quite sure. So at the last meeting, it was said that we will have to enter position titles for all employees. As of now, we're entering the position titles for PEPRA employees. When I tried to enter the position titles for Classic, I received an error. Has this been fixed?
No, it's part of the enrollment screen.
I'm going to have to take that back because I wasn't aware that you're getting error messages because I know that ever since we went live, pretty much only state employers put in the position title because it came over on the record, but I wasn't aware that errors were being given to employers when they don't put in the position title. So
Errors for position.
So if that individual can email me with the CID of the person who they're getting the error on, we can look into it.
Will do. I'll make sure that both of you get connected there. Thank you.
And just for that person who's asking that question, I need to know where the error is occurring. If the error is occurring at time of creating position titles, because everybody can create a position title, or is it being created at time of doing the enrollment and trying to select a position title? Because that's going to be helpful for me to figure out where the system defect is.
I would just like to know, or it's my turn on the mic.
Yes.
Just like to say that Vina's initial question that you asked to pull offline as an unusual one, we're very much interested in knowing, and we've just had recent discussions at our district about sick leave pools and pots and separate classified versus certificated, and with the upcoming changes of AB 1522, we're now going to have sick leave accruals, pots for hourly classified temporary people and students. We're at a community college, and how we're supposed to deal with those. We're working through those. So we will be interested in knowing, because we very often have people who will move through the system, maybe start as a student employee, work as an hourly temp classified, then maybe qualify as a part-time faculty, and eventually become a full-time regular classified or a full-time faculty member. So we're very much interested in knowing what we should be doing with those sick leave balances as people move through to different positions, and eventually if they retire, and what systems we'll be accepting?
So I will tell you that my CalPERS does have a warning message that it looks at the enrollment period that they're a member. And they take 8 hours for every month that they've been a member to derive more or less what the hours that should be reported based on that 8 hours a month. So
So
if you
maximum.
exceed that, you'll get a warning. It's not an error, it's a warning. But I do know that my CalPERS does have that.
And is that based on a 12-month year? So 8 hours for each month over 12 months?
Yes.
But there's nothing specific to, I mean, somebody who may have used half of it, but they accrued half as a certificated person and then came over and we pooled it, then they used some. You won't know, correct?
Correct. It's really the employer who's certifying those hours based on the law, and we look at CalPERS over the course of their employment with us.
Good. Any other questions for our panelists at this point? Nothing?
Yes, my question regarding the special compensation. And I received a guidance saying that special compensation needs to report separately from the pay rate. Is there any special situation that we can combine the special compensation like longevity or degree with the pay rate and report as a lump sum?
Hi, so to clarify your question, you wanted to know if there's a situation where you could combine pay rate and
And special compensation? The answer is no. So we really want to emphasize transparency, and to do so, we really need those items to be separated so that we can identify, pursuant to your MOU and pursuant to our governing laws, what can be reportable for purposes of calculating the retirement benefit. So we ask that those two pieces are separated. We need to identify the pay rate pursuant to your pay schedule, and then have the special compensation separate so that we can verify those amounts. Did you have a question?
No, I thought some of the special comp items which are already on the schedule, let's say longevity, a range and a column, that is okay to combine?
Correct. So in a circumstance of longevity, if I wasn't sure, in particular, generally speaking, special compensation needs to be separated. For purposes of schools, when we do see longevity that's on the pay schedule, we really do see that for all intents and purposes. We'll look at several things. Are you calculating overtime on it? Is it, is it for all intents and purposes really and truly the pay rate? And is it really just, a definition of, you call it longevity, in terms of our definition of longevity is a special compensation. So in terms of schools, generally speaking, when it is on your pay schedule and it shows longevity and it's clear, that's okay to have within the pay rate.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one thing about that? Okay. Hi, I'm from Benefits again, and I just wanted to kind of emphasize something that happens at retirement when special compensation is inaccurately reported. If it comes through and then post-retirement, we have to make an adjustment. And for example, we see that something has been improperly combined with the pay rate, we split it out. And then we have to, by law, adjust the retiree's allowance, and so they can get an overpayment from doing that. So I can't stress enough that you accurately report special compensation as separate when it should be, because we eventually find it. And then that will put the retiree in the position of having to pay back the retirement allowance that was in excess of what they were actually entitled to if the payroll reporting had been accurate to begin with.
Okay, one last question. We have reached our time limit here, so one last question for the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification because I thought your regular salary pay rate and special compensation are part of the final comp.
That's correct. So in terms of actually reporting it, so special compensation, which is the exclusive list that's outlined in 571, those items of compensation need to be reported separately aside from your pay rate. But both of those components do comprise compensation earnable, which is used to calculate your benefit.
So if it was reported incorrectly, it was being said that that would have an effect on the retiree.
Absolutely. So if you're reporting, if you're over-reporting an amount, if you're over-reporting your pay rate or you're over-reporting special compensation, when it comes to my section, we review that and we identify, your pay rates exceed your pay schedule, we're going to limit you to that. If for some reason that gets down to benefits and they identify it down there, it's kind of we work together, that could result in a reduce of benefits if it's over the pay schedule, if it's beyond what should be reported pursuant to your MOU. So those amounts, it could impact your calc.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, and thank you to our panelists for literally stepping up into the crucible. Thank you very much. You're relieved of duty. Okay, so we've reached the magical lunch hour. So this will conclude the CalPERS portion of the SEAC meeting. Lunch will be served next door, and we will resume at 12:30 with the CalSTRS portion. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you to everyone on the webcast for your questions and viewership. Sorry you're not here to enjoy lunch, but next time hopefully you'll be here. The next meeting is May 13th, and that will also be here at CalSTRS. May 13th here at CalSTRS. See you then. Thank you.